even if it is the writings of Jesus, even if it is the writings of, even if all that is unadulterated, it's not been altered by human beings, it's still put together by people, written down by people.
So if these overzealous monks wanted to doctor the Bible, what they would have to do is find over 6,000 manuscripts, change all of them, not show their ink work, get them all back where they stole them from, and never tell anybody what they did. That's just level number one.
So we're going to watch Voddie Baucham expose the problems with this view that the Bible has been corrupted, and then to debunk a handful of popular myths about the Bible that have unfortunately reached very far into our culture. So with that being said, let's dive in.
I choose to believe the Bible because it's a reliable collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. They report to us supernatural events that took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies and claim that their writings are divine rather than human in origin. And let's unpack this. First of all, the Bible is a reliable collection of historical documents. Look at what he says here in verse 16. For we did not follow cleverly devised tales when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. We did not follow cleverly devised tales. We did not follow myths or fairy tales or legends. We did not follow things that were made up. Luke puts it this way in his prologue. Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile an account of the things accomplished among us, just as they were passed down to us by those who were beforehand eyewitnesses and servants of the word, it seemed fitting to me, having investigated everything carefully from the beginning, to write it out for you in consecutive order, most excellent Theophilus, so that you might believe God on blind faith. No, so that you might know the exact truth about the things you have been taught. We have a reliable collection of historical documents. Not myths, not fairy tales, not legends. This is not the Gilgamesh epic here. These are things that actually transpired in history and were recorded for us. Not only do we have a reliable collection of historical documents, but they were written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul says that Jesus was resurrected. After he was resurrected, he appeared to Peter. Then he appeared to the 12. Then he appeared to all of the disciples at once. Then he appeared to over 500 brethren at one time. And he says these words, most of whom remain until now. When you do the math, you realize that when 1 Corinthians was written, there were over 300 eyewitnesses, at least, of the resurrection of Jesus Christ who were still alive during that time.
Okay, so this is the first big point here. Contrary to popular belief, the events in the Bible are actually not of a mythological nature. They were not written in a galaxy far, far away or once upon a time. They're actually written in history, and that can be proven incontrovertibly to be true. I'm going to unpack this a little bit more at the end of the video, but first listen to Voddie coming up here, how he debunks this popular myth about the Bible. It's really almost like a conspiracy theory, like I mentioned, and it's one that unfortunately has really permeated into our culture. So let's dive into that.
Oh, I hear you. You're well-educated people. You've heard the arguments. Yes, brother, I understand that, but you see what happened was there were individuals who came and doctored the Bible up, and it's been translated so many times, and it's been changed so many times. And when I talk to college students sometimes, they tell me about this myth of these overzealous monks who went out and changed the Bible so that things would match up, so that it would look like we have older documents than we actually have. And in fact, and I think they're really telling me something when they tell this, you know, we don't have any of the originals. Like I'm supposed to shake in my boots when they tell me that. Listen to me. If overzealous monks want to change the Bible, can I explain to you what they would have had to do? 3 levels of conspiracy. Level number 1, they would have had to have a manuscript conspiracy. When we're talking about just the New Testament itself, there are over 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament itself. Now, that may not sound like a lot to you, but can I compare it to a couple of things? Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. That's how we know about Julius Caesar and his conquest. We have around 10 manuscripts. Aristotle's Poetics. We have nearly 5 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Herodotus, we have less than 10 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Homer, less than 10 of each of his writings. When it comes to the New Testament, we have 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament. Folks, that's not even close. Well, you don't have the originals. No, we really don't. But guess what? We can get earlier than AD 120 with some of the copies that we have. When it comes to Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 900 years after the original. But nobody's tearing down the walls in college because they're reading Caesar. When it comes to Aristotle, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 1,400 years after the original. But when it comes to the New Testament, we can put our hands on documents that were written within decades of the originals. So if these overzealous monks wanted to doctor the Bible, what they would have to do is find over 6,000 manuscripts, change all of them, not show their ink work, get them all back where they stole them from, and never tell anybody what they did. That's just level number one. Here's level number two. Jesus said, go and make disciples of ta ethne, every people group. Funny thing about people groups, they tend to speak different languages. So within the first few centuries, we have the Bible translated into Syriac, Coptic, and Latin. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 Greek manuscripts, change those, doctor them up, don't show your ink work, get them back, go find all the Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations of those Greek manuscripts, change those to match the lies that you told in another language, and get those back where you stole them from. And that's just level number two. Now you got level number three. The early church fathers had this terrible habit of writing commentary on the New Testament. So much so that Bruce Metzger argues, if all we had of the New Testament was the quotations and citations by the early church fathers, we could reproduce over 95% of the New Testament just from their writings. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 manuscripts and portions of manuscripts, steal them, change them, don't show your ink work, get it back without anybody finding out. They got to find Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations, change those to match the lies that they told in the 6,000 manuscripts, get those back where they stole them from, and then find all of the writings of all of the early church fathers, change those to match the lies that they told 2 layers ago, get those put back, never tell anybody what they did, and never ever get caught. Help you if you believe that.
Okay, so for those who are interested in a clear example of how the Bible is historic, here would be a really good one. Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate, mentioned in Matthew 27, Mark 15, Luke 23, John 18. He served as the Roman prefect for Judea. He's famously known for presiding over the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ, biblically speaking. But Pontius Pilate is also extremely well documented outside of the Bible. One example would be the Jewish historian Josephus. He writes about Pontius Pilate in what is called the Antiquities of the Jews. He references Pilate, he references his governance in Judea. He also references specifically his involvement in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. We also have archaeological evidence that corroborates the same thing. We have something called the Pilate Stone, and you can see here it bears the inscription dedicated to Tiberius Caesar, who was the Caesar at the time of Christ, but it also mentions the name Pontius Pilate on this stone. And again, the point here is that the events in the Bible are also in history. They're actually part of the historic record that we have. They're not, again, in a galaxy far, far away. Another thing I wanted to hit on a practical note really quick is that there's basically 900,000 subscribers to this channel, and we each spend about $100 a month on everyday essentials. Collectively, that's almost $100 million a month that flow to massive corporations like Amazon, Target, Johnson & Johnson, etc. The problem that I have with that is that many of these companies support agendas and causes that directly oppose our values, that directly oppose a biblical worldview, and they actually act on it, right? They actually do things with that money. They take that money and they use it to fund agendas that actually make the world a worse place. Things like supporting Planned Parenthood, radical ideologies, etc., right? In light of this, what I have done is made a change. I've started buying from an American-made, family-owned manufacturer that aligns with what I believe in more so. The reason I'm talking about it here on YouTube is I realized if I do this out of my personal conviction, good for me. But if I can convince you to do this with me, then we can actually maybe make a dent in terms of flowing money away from some of these insane agendas. Maybe it's a small way in which we can impact the culture for the good. If you are interested to learn more about this, then click the link in the description or go to switchwithbrandon.com, and someone from this very community will reach out to you and help get all your questions answered about the ins and outs and logistics of this whole thing.